Can you close a subject to yourself? What documents do you use? How do you close with an attorney, a title company, yourself on the kitchen table? How does it work? We get these questions all the time. And today we're going to take you from contract to closing on the Sub2Deals Show.
Are you looking to up your real estate investing game? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Sub2Deals Show with your host, Sub2 expert William Tingle.
Hey, Sub2ers, my name is William Tingle of Sub2Deals.com, and I would like to welcome you to this episode of the Sub2Deals Show where we talk about all things subject to. Now, occasionally we will cover other real estate investing topics, but it is always something to help you with your real estate investing business. Now, today's topic is all the documents and the process needed to take you from initial contract to closing on a Sub2 deal. This is really one of the more common questions or group of questions that we get on a day-to-day basis. What contracts do we use? What's the process for closing? Do you need to close with an attorney or a title company? Can you close yourself? And that sort of thing. And the answer to all of them is, well, yeah, you can do all of them differently. You can close with an attorney. You can close with a title company. Yeah, you can close it yourself. My recommendation is to know what you're doing before you try to do that. Close the first couple of deals with a title company or with an attorney. We actually got started doing our own closings really more for convenience than anything else. It wasn't about saving the money. You can typically close a Sub2 deal with an attorney or a title company for under $600 if you're not purchasing title insurance. And, title insurance is a topic for another day. Just let me say that as a matter of fact, I've only purchased title insurance a couple of times in all of my investing, and that was as a hard money lender, which really our buyer purchased it anyway. We didn't have to pay for it, but I'll get to why title insurance. I don't think it's such a big deal later in this broadcast, but let's get started. So you're out there in the marketplace, you're putting out bandit signs, you're doing texting, you're doing cold calling, you're mailing, you're doing whatever it is you're doing to generate leads, and you get a call and it sounds like something that might be a deal. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is get this thing under contract. And remember, this whole process, this is our process, this is how we do it. I'm not saying you have to do it exactly this way, but there's a reason that we do the things that we do in the order that we do them. One is the order is just what it has to be as far as the contracts that you get. Of course, you're going to initially get your sales agreement and that sort of thing, and you're going to go to close. Of course, that's at the end. But the process is really set up so that the things with minimal to no cost are done first. If you're going to get tripped up on this thing or it's going to turn out not to be a deal, we would obviously prefer for that to happen before we've spent money on title work or inspections or anything like that. So that's really why we set this process up the way it works. But this is how it goes. Yeah, it sounds like you've got a good deal. So the first thing you're going to want to do is get this thing under contract. So we start this out with 4 documents. We're going to get a sales agreement. We're going to get an authorization to release information. We're going to get a limited and specific power of attorney, and we're also going to get a seller's disclosure. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're doing this locally or remotely, you're going to want the same documents. And we'll go through each document and tell you why. Now, the sales contract, well, that's obvious. A sales agreement is an agreement or a meeting of the minds between a buyer and a seller, and it lays out the terms under which they're going to sell and you're going to purchase. That sales contract, you'll want to make sure that it's filled out correctly, that all of the names of the people on title are listed on the contract, and it's signed by all of those people as well. And a lot of times you'll find situations where people are divorcing and one of the 2 divorcing people will contact you. Well, you're going to have to deal with that other person too. Now, my favorite way to do that is to get the other person to quit claim their interest to the party that contacted me, and then I can just deal with them going forward. Now, be aware that in some states, even if both parties aren't on title, both parties still have to agree to this sale and will still need to sign the contract and all the documents for you. These are community property states, and there are probably about a dozen of them. That may change somewhat, and there are different stipulations for each state. Some states have some strange community property laws, such as Alaska has an opt-in community property law that allows people to decide whether or not to operate as a community property and that sort of thing. So it's important that you know the laws in your state. You either need to do that through research. Google is your friend on things like this. Just Google your state, foreclosure laws or community property laws, that sort of thing. I used to like to, when I worked locally in Georgia, I used to like to go to a lot of the legal seminars and things like that in Atlanta. And I've spent a ton of money on legal books. Thompson West is an excellent resource, but remember, you're not talking about $20 paperbacks here. You're talking about $200, $300, $400 legal books. But they have, I mean, the absolute things that you need to know about how all of these things work, and then in the states that you're working. So, as every state's different, it's important to know the law. But make sure that contract's filled out correctly. Make sure all of the parties that need to sign it have it signed, and that they're listed on the contract. Now, if you're smart, you're using a contract that's slanted toward you as the buyer. And when I say slanted, really what I mean is just wording, such as in a contract where it's slanted toward the seller, it would say the closing date is on or before. With one slanted toward the buyer, it may say closing date is on or about. And that's just going to give you some flexibility. You'll want to make sure that you have those contracts slanted toward buyer, slanted toward seller. Uh, like I said, make sure that everyone who's on the deed or has an interest is on there. Make sure that you understand the community property laws. As far as the authorization to release, that's a pretty standard document that you're going to get that just says that the seller agrees to name you as an authorized person for the lender to speak with regarding the loan. The seller's disclosure in our case is going to be a disclosure that covers a lot of different areas, that the seller understands that we're going to make a profit, that the seller agrees that selling to you is in their best interest. It covers about 30 different points that the seller initials and signs off on, basically just saying that they understand every aspect of what we're doing, and that they're okay with it and want to move forward with it. Now, the limited and specific power of attorney we used to get at the actual closing, but we've moved that to an initial document. And the reason that we did that was because one of the marketing methods that we started using in the last few years has been to actually list the property on the MLS to get our buyer. And to do that, a lot of times, depending on the agent that you're dealing with, they require the person listing the property to be on title. Well, obviously, since we're not on title yet, that can be problematic. But with a limited and specific power of attorney, then we have that, and that allows us to list the property. Now, if you're working with an agent that knows you and that knows what you're doing and you have that relationship, that's probably not going to be an issue. But a lot of times with us working in different markets around the country, it can be. So for that reason, we go ahead and we get that up front. So those are your initial documents that you're going to want to get. Now, your next step, once you have your documents, is going to be to verify the loan information. And you can do this with your authorization to release or your limited and specific power of attorney. Our preferred way to do it is actually to get on a three-way call with the bank and the seller and let him identify himself and speak to Sally on the phone. And he says, hey, I'm sitting here with William. He's helping us with some financial matters. and one of them is being the property, and he needs to ask you some questions about the financing. So they'll say okay, and then I'll just speak to them and ask them the questions that I need to know, which typically are going to be, I want to verify the loan balance. I want to know about the term of the loan. Is it a 15-year, 30-year, 20-year? I want to know the interest rate. I want to verify whether it's adjustable or fixed. I want to know if the loan has ever been in forbearance or been modified, if it's currently in a forbearance, if it's totally current. And, you can say, well, I'll just ask the seller these things, and that's fine. But know this, we have a saying in our business that buyers are liars and sellers are storytellers. And that's just the case when people, especially people in distress, they won't always be 100% forthcoming with you about their current circumstances. And sometimes sellers, to be honest with you, just don't know. You would be amazed at the number of people that I speak with who do not know the term of their note or the interest rate. It just happens. And if you don't verify this information, I mean, it could be a disaster for you later when your planned disposition for this property just won't fit because it won't cash flow, or they owe more than you think and it just won't work out. You want to go into this knowing, you want to have absolute certainty on all of these things. Now, one of the things we also ask for is the closing package from when the seller bought the house. Now, that thing has a ton of information. It'll have everything from surveys to title insurance policies, a copy of the deed, the loan note, the original mortgage. I mean, the whole bit. Most people aren't able to come up with that. They misplace it. It gets thrown in the attic somewhere, and that sort of thing. But if you can get that, that is really a really good thing to have in the file. So that is your next step, verifying the loan information. Once we pass through that, if everything still looks good, then we're going to be conducting any inspections. Most of the time, we don't get a home inspection. What we do is if we're local, we can do it ourselves. But if we're remote, we're going to line up someone, either a field agent, field inspector, real estate agent. You can hire gig workers off of several different sites now to go by, take photos and video the property and the neighborhood so you know exactly what you're getting. We actually have a list of specific photos that we want taken that are going to let us know about the condition of the property and what we're buying. So, that's important. You want to know the condition, you want to know a little bit about the neighborhood and that sort of thing. So my suggestion to you right now is to start recruiting people to do that for you. If you're going to be buying in a remote market, you want to be able to call someone up, have a preset price to go by there and get that done. And we can typically have a package of photos. And like I said, we have a lengthy list of the ones that we want to have taken. You can usually get that done for between 50 and 75 bucks. So I would line up somebody right now in the cities or towns that I want to work in that I can just call up and say, hey, I need you to run by 123 Oak Street as soon as you can and get this photo package out for me. And they can send us the digital photos. We can look at them. If we see anything that looks suspicious or looks like there might be a problem, we'll have them go back and take some more detailed photos. Or if it's anything that looks like there's a serious foundation problem, at that point we may have an inspector go by and take a look at that. But generally, just the photos will take care of things for us. Okay, so if we've gotten through the loan verification process and all the numbers look good, we've gotten pictures of the property and it's to our satisfaction, the next step is going to be to verify good title. We're going to order a title report from a title company or an attorney. If we've got a team member, someone that we know that works at the courthouse, we're going to get them to run title for us. If we're local, we may run down to the courthouse and take a look at it ourselves. Now, this is something that I actually learned to do back when I got started almost 20 years ago. I had my attorney do the first few titles for me, and I was just curious to learn myself. So I asked him, I said, hey, Wayne, I said, next time I have a deal, can I just come down and shadow you while you do the title work? And he said, sure. So he showed me step by step. And remember, title work isn't that big a deal. There's a process, and most people that do it work by the hour for the title company. They just spend days at a time down there researching titles. They make, 10, 15, $20 an hour. So he took me through and I learned how to do it. But you can generally hire somebody. Title work may cost you $150 or so. It's not that expensive, but it's got to be done. You have to know if there are other liens or mortgages or judgments or anything else in the chain of title. So you can't skip that. That's something that's got to be done. So if the title report comes back and everything looks good there, we know we're going to be ready to close. At that point, we want to get our insurance guy involved. And let me just tell you this. Go ahead. Don't try. The first couple of courses that I read when I got started said to try to work with the insurance company that's already insuring the property. I found that to be a major, major pain. So I took the time to just find somebody that I liked, sit down with them for an hour, explain exactly what I was doing, and let them know that I would be buying anywhere from 10 to 15 to 20 to 30 houses a year. And if they wanted a high volume customer, I was their huckleberry. Well, I happened to choose a guy that worked for State Farm. State Farm's a reputable company, and they pay if you have a loss, and they're okay with trust. So we've stuck with them, and that's who we use even today. Um, Go ahead and find this person now if you plan on doing much business, because you want to be able to pick the phone up. And if you've got this guy trained properly, when you get a house and when you're certain you're going to close, you can just pick up the phone, call him, and say, hey, Joe, uh, we just got a contract on a house at 123 Oak Street. We're going to close on the 30th of this month. The house, the lender on the property is Bank of America. He's probably already got their number, and just say the seller's name was Tom Seller, and the account number is whatever it is, and I need for you to get this policy going for me, effective on the 30th of this month. And he'll handle everything. He'll bill escrow. You'll be insured on the day that you close, and it's just hands off for you. It's so simple to get it done. But get this guy in place now, so when you start buying houses, he can take care of it for you. And also make sure that don't listen to these guys that say just leave the same policy there in place. It'll be okay. The minute that seller sells to you, his policy is no longer valid. It's no longer an owner-occupied property, and you just won't be insured. So you want to make sure that your new policy is effective and in place when you take the deed. 95% of the houses that you buy will have an escrow account, so changing the insurance shouldn't really cost you anything if you've got your guy in place. It'll be a pretty painless process. You can make a couple of phone calls and get everything taken care of. Okay, so once everything's in place and you've got the house situated, you've got possession, your new policy's in place. A couple of weeks down the road, you'll take your power of attorney. You'll contact the old insurance company that your seller had their policy with, and you'll use your POA to cancel that old policy and have any refunds sent to you. Because in your contract, there should be a provision that gives you custody of any insurance refunds or escrow account balances. Um, so you'll cancel the old policy, the refund will get sent to you. You can either deposit it into your bank account, or you can send the balance back to the mortgage company to be deposited into the escrow account. So whatever you choose to do. And once that's all taken care of, you're ready to schedule your closing. You can close with an attorney, a title company, or a mobile notary. If you're local, you can just go with your seller to a bank or a grocery store or a business post office service, and they can notarize any documents that you need and close your deal. At that point, you'll want to set up your payments. You can either use a servicer if that's what you like, or set up your payments on bill pay with your bank account, your business bank account, or mail them a check every month. Just whatever suits you. Along the lines of the servicer, of course, you guys, if you've been around for me for a little bit, I don't recommend a servicer. I think it's a waste of money. I don't think there are really any advantages to doing it. But anyway, that's just something else I added. It doesn't really have anything to do with the closing. You can handle it any way that you like. But that's how we do it, step by step. That's the process. Those are the documents that you need to get that thing done. And that's it. If I can help you in any other way, just let me know. It's important that you get the training that you need to really do this properly. Someone's course, someone's step-by-step instruction, whatever trainer that you choose to follow. Don't try to get all of your information off of YouTube or podcasts. What we can give you in a podcast is somewhat limited, the information. You need a step-by-step plan. And of course, we offer a training program, the Ultimate Sub2 Guidebook at Sub2Deals.com if you'd like to take a look at that. I've been teaching investors for over 17 years and would love to teach you. So that's it for this episode of the Sub2Deals Show podcast. You can find the show notes for this episode along with a complete transcript at Sub2podcast.com. If you enjoyed this episode and our podcast in general, we would love it if you would subscribe and give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It only takes a minute and it helps others discover the show. You can subscribe as well as leave a rating and review by visiting Apple Podcasts and just do a quick search for the Sub2Deals Show. And finally, if you haven't yet, we would love it if you would join us at our free Facebook Subject To group at Sub2Forum.com. And as always, we have a lot of resources to help you grow your real estate investing business at Sub2Deals.com. So until next time, keep learning, keep talking to sellers, and you will buy some houses.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Sub2Deals Show with William Tingle. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe. And for more great content and to stay up to date, visit Sub2Deals.com or on Facebook at Sub2Deals. We'll catch you next time.